Street of black light. Street of black light. Street of black light. Down, Papa, don't you blow.
Hello, welcome to the next part. Have you had a good week? Are you well? I hope you are. And I'm just going to start this next segment with putting on the top of the rear fuselage, which is numbered 9. Now, I urge caution at this point to get everything lined up, and what I have done is I put a pin in the back there, made sure the back was lined up, which now gives me a pivot, and I can twist this piece either left or right to get it absolutely central, and then secured it with some elastic bands. Now, once you know you've got it central, all you've got to do now is turn it upside down and put some glue in the joints from this angle, or from here if you wish, and that glues in the top end, and that's how you centralize that. You can only do it by eye. You know, it's not worth measuring it. The only piece that is probably worth measuring is this bit at the front here. Now, it's important that you have at least 30 millimeters, and that's probably a little bit overhang there, but that's all right, we can cope with that. What is that in imperial? That's inch and a half. So for our American friends, that's an inch and a half from that number 4 former. Okay, so that's number 4 former. So in English or metric, it's at least 30 mil, or if you like 3 centimeters. In American, inch and a half. And then all you're going to do is just glue that in place, let it go off, and then shape it. What's happened? I've been a bit naughty. I went a little bit ahead. I've put the motor mount on, so you can see how that goes there, and how the cables for the motor will run through here and possibly through here for the speed controller. It's my intention to put the speed controller somewhere around about here, and of course then the receiver can possibly go here. Haven't put too much thought into that just yet. I've also added the servo for the elevator, and there's a reason why I've done that. It's because at this part we need to add this, and I'm running out of room. So before I put this on, I decided to put the servo in, just to save me grief later down the line. I did read the instructions, and they say to put it in later in the build, but I don't want to do that. I just think it'd be a good idea to do it now, and I don't think it's going to affect anything adversely. So I've also put the snake in. I'll put a little holder in here. Just drilled a 6.5mm hole in a bit of spare stiff balsa, and just put that in, so that links up to here, and that snake goes all the way around and comes out on the right hand side. Also, this is glued in, and now it's all been shaped down to accommodate I should say, the sheeting that now goes on the sides here. Okay, so I've also taken advantage of the fact that I might lose access to putting the snake in, so that was another good reason to put that in. But that is that part of the build where it should go in, and so things are moving forward. So the thing is, the burning question is, how do we get the correct angle for this here? Now, what is that? That is the bulkhead, the rear bulkhead for the, do you know, I've forgotten what it's called now. Oh dear. It's for the battery cover. So when you do the battery cover, there'll be a piece goes in here and a piece goes in here, and the cover goes on top, and you have to get this angle correct. So what you do is you put the glue on it, you set it in a bowl, you do a dry run first try and get in dry, and then you put the glue on and you put a ruler across, and so this now meets the bottom of here, which is the same height as the number 1 former and number 3 former here, and that gives you the correct angle. And then from now on it should be okay. Now there is a block of wood that will go on top like that, which isn't this piece. This piece is the opposite side of the battery cover, and as you can see I've put the magnets in, and the reason I've done that is because I want them to line up, and it's going to be easier to drill holes and put magnets in while they're loose. So I did that before I glued them in, and all I did was I just put them at the same angle, put a pin through so I knew where both holes would line up, and then what I did was, to make sure I got the correct orientation, I put a piece of sellotape on the back of this side here, a piece of sellotape on the back side that side, so I know that they should be apart. And then I got the magnets, I put a piece of sellotape on the front of the magnet, put the glue in, put the sellotape over the magnet and pushed it in. That now goes in flat, and then when it's ready I just peel off the sellotape, and I did the same for the other side, and I know that this is attracted to that one, so therefore it's a pretty simple operation to do. Yeah, so there you go, that's that bit. This top bulkhead here, that takes a little bit of time. I did use my hand plane. It only takes you so far, then you have to do it by eye with some 120 grit just to finish it off, and then I put the 600 grit over the top of that then just to smooth it all down, and I just had to run my eye down it to make sure that, you know, it's the correct shape. So I'll just run my eye down it like that. Okay, so there we are with that for now. So I think that will do for now. The reason I did this all off camera was, number one, it saves time on camera work, etc., and sometimes you just need a bit of time alone just to figure out and get it done, and it wouldn't be very good camera work either. So, and it helps to keep the filming, you know, down to a reasonable time, so you can fit everything in. So otherwise you end up about 30 episodes. So that's where we're at. So starting from the front, there's your motor mount. The screws are all inside and, you know, and glued in, so there's no effort there to screw the motor on. This rear bulkhead's in at the correct angle. This is obviously done before. The servo is in. This bulkhead's there, flat top, I suppose you could say, and that's in. It's been shaped. Your snake is in. There's a little tab there to guide it, because you don't want that wobbling around, because you want positive action on your servo. So there we are for now. We can have a look at it from underneath. Okay, Velcro needs to go in here and here. Velcro needs to go on the top here to hold the battery, and this is where you should be now. I did consider putting in the bolt here, but I'm reconsidering. I have to think about that, because I just want to get things done while I have the room and the space to do it. So I might put that in next. Uncertain at this point. So that's where we are. Okay, so there you are, and see you in the next bit. Well, the battery cover. Well, you've got to get the 5x5 square dowel, measure it from here to here, cut it twice, put a little angle in there. Now you may have to sand a little bit here and there to make it a flush fit with the formers. And this middle one, now if you actually follow the drawing, it will not fit. See, the further you go this way, the smaller this gets, if you see what I mean. So you have to bring this fairly forward, almost to the middle, and from this point here, the front of F1 to the middle of this one, I've measured as 75 millimeters, so that's 7.5 centimeters. What's that in imperial? Let's have a look. Doodle-doodle for our American friends, that's 3 inches. So roughly around 3 inches, and just make sure that it goes flush with the bottom of that there. Okay, now I'll just put this in here just for now. There you go, and that's a fairly good fit. So what you'll have is you take this other half of number 8, which I'm going to call the engine, well, I suppose fuel tank top deck, isn't it, because the engine will be here. So you lay that flat, and then you adjust this till this reaches the bottom of this deck. You then shorten that deck to become flush with the face of F1, because you've got other wood going to go on here. Okay, and then you put the sheetings on. Well, what you do actually, you sand the formers to fit at the rear here. At the front it's not too bad. And the bit that I cut off there, I added onto here. So if you remember, this was short, so I've added it on here because it's more or less the same shape, and I'll just sand that to suit. It might even disappear by the time I've sanded it, or become invisible. So that's how we're going to do the battery cover. So I'm going to put that on here and make sure I sand these, and then that'll be ready for sheeting around the sides. And then once that's all together, this will just pop out, and the only thing keeping it in at the moment is the magnet, which is not a bad thing. Okay, so that's your battery cowling. This is a good time to get hold of your canopy and cut it out and mask it up. Now, if you're going to mask it up, which I highly suggest you do, get the thinnest Tamiya tape. Use other tapes are available. Use thinnest Tamiya tape, stick it onto your building board and cut it into little strips, say about 2 millimeters wide, because you can get round the bends then, you see, and go all the way round the frame and then fill the frame in. And if you cut these into thin little strips, you'll find that a lot easier. Now, I masked this up before I cut it out because it's easier to handle that way. Now, my method of cutting these to shape is you get a coarse glass paper. Now that sounds kind of frightening, I know, but what you do is you bend the plastic over and then you sand that joint, okay, and eventually it will go thin and you can just waddle it and it just comes away naturally. You do that all the way around as much as you can. Now the cheat is if you measure the distance, in this case it's 15 millimeters. What's that for the Americans? 15 millimeters. Let's have a look. That's there, so ½ an inch. So that's ½ an inch, and you get your Sharpie pen and you put dots all the way around, and then you put some of the Tamiya tape along the dots, and it gives you more or less a straight line. That bit you can cut either with a knife or, in my case, scissors. And the only time you want to stop is when you get to this rear curve, because this is where you want to bend the plastic again and sand it. Because if you try to cut that with a knife, you're gonna, well, unless you're particularly skilled, like a surgeon or something, you're going to find that problematic to get that really nice curve there. Okay, and that's how I cut these out. So I sanded it here, 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 around there, and then the rest I cut out with scissors using the straight line. See, there's the dots. Can you see the dots there? So I just put the tape along those dots, measured it out. Okay, make sure you're very careful. Take time over it. This took me quite a long time to cut out and mask off, which is why I didn't really show it, because it's just too time consuming. You don't need to mask off the interior. Now, it is my intention to spray this, and I've ordered some Tamiya spray paint. I'm going to put a base, which is a black gloss base over this. Let that go off, then go over the top with a silver chrome, a Tamiya silver chrome, because the reason is for the black is chrome, or types of chrome paint, need a gloss base to put it on to make it come up, and that's what I've done there. Now, the other reason for making off the canopy is because it'll help you to shape the fuzz. So this now is in the just about right position for the canopy to go, and you can now see what the correct shape should be, and that will help you shape that so that canopy will just sit on there. Well, that's the idea anyway, and look correct. So if I just turn that round, let's sit something like that, and you'll see how that back end needs to be curved here. It can remain flat there if you wish, but it needs to be curved here and curved here, and then you just follow it on for the rest of the fuzz. And that's my topical tip. Do you know, I was so engrossed with what I was doing, I nearly forgot to make this bit of video. Okay, so done the battery cover. Now it's time to start sheeting the sides. You get your 2mm length of balsa sheet, cut it to length and glue it in to that top edge there. Try and get it as, you know, as neat as possible. Make sure you cut it slightly over length, okay, and you will now need to bend that. Now, one of the best ways I know of doing this is to go out and get yourself a sponge and wet this side only, don't do the other side, just this side, okay, and you'll find that becomes a lot more pliable. Give it about, I don't know, 6 to 10 minutes, wet it down, and then just ease it, and eventually that will go into the shape that you want it to go into, and then just trim it off as you need to trim it off. It needs to come flush to the end of former number 6 and flush to the end, well, past former number 4, actually to the end of the top deck there. Okay, so make sure that, you know, you've got a little bit of overhang, because mistakes are easily made. So I'm going to go and get my sponge. So here we are. I used the sponge and the water to bend, well, to ease this over, bend it over. Then use elastic bands and tape, and it went almost perfectly to shape. And then I took it out of the workshop, left it in the kitchen overnight, and it's absolutely well formed there, and it just needs sanding down now and just shaping up. You will get a little bit of a gap there. You can either pursue it and sand it, or you can fill it in and then sand it in, and you'll get an almost seamless line when you come to cover it. So it's time now to do the other side, and it's exactly the same process. So that's all you got to do really. So I just thought I'd just throw this in with the spraying up of the canopy. I've used TS14 black. This is a high gloss black, and I've done that deliberately because over the top I'm using a TS83 metallic silver, and these are meant to work together so you get a shiny finish like that, and that's quite deliberate. So, but now that's dry, I can now use this canopy to do a trial fit. Now obviously we've got to put the sheeting on here, so this will need to come out a little bit, but not too worried about that because I know where I am. This is the bit that does matter, because I've done this now. Yeah, probably went a little bit too far actually with the sanding, but that's not a big massive problem. But as you can see, if you sand it all up, you can lose quite a lot of stuff just in doing that. Yes, it is time consuming, but you know, this is lovely and smooth now, and it's looking how it should do, so I'm quite pleased with that. So let's put that on. It's got to go more or less there. So once you put a bit of pressure on there, that will actually form round the top deck here, so that's not a bad fit. So you can use this canopy as a gauge, if you like, so you know how it's all going to look and fit. So it's starting to look a bit like a Mustang now, just starting to get there. So yeah, so let's put this bit on next. Well, we're coming to the end now of part 5. The next part would be too long if I just add it on, because I'm going to show you how to put on the sides forward of the cockpit, but also some history. You know, I think it's important to know the history of the models that you're making, so that's coming along next, and that'll be about roughly 20-25 minutes in the next episode. So I wish you a healthy week until next time, and if you can appear to watch the next part, that'd be super smashing wonderful great. Thank you very much for your time. Cheerio.